Hey there. Although I am involved with CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada, the views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the participants and do not reflect those of CADAC. And now, cue the music.
This is the Impulsive Thinker Podcast, a show for high-achieving ADHD entrepreneurs. Together, we will inform and educate you about how to improve your self-awareness while developing systems, routines, and habits for conquering the entrepreneurial world. Here is your host, Andre Brisson.
Hey there, it's Andre with a short from the Impulsive Thinker Podcast for the high-achieving ADHD entrepreneur. This episode is brought to you by CADAC, the Center of ADHD Awareness Canada. You can get more information on CADAC at www.caddac.ca. I was driving one day in rush to a client site. I decided to have some final last-minute conversations on the way out the door. I let a phone call go a little too long, so I was running behind. So as I was rushing down the road, not speeding, rushing, it hit me. It hit me because I look back at the day, I said, man, I let that distraction get to me. The rule was, as I'm going out the door, I'm not to take any questions. And when I'm out the door, I'm already late. That's what I tell my team. But I decided to take the conversations anyways. Now I was rushed. Now I'm going into Toronto. You don't know what's going to happen with traffic. So anyways, I'm rolling down the road and I start to reflect back in my undiagnosed days when I was starting my company, my engineering company, the first one. And what I did. And one thing I did was I overbooked myself. I would book meetings and site visits to be first thing in the morning so I can get up. I had an urgency to get up and get going. Down thing. I overbooked myself and I kept a very tight schedule. So I was bouncing from meeting to meeting and I'd actually let distractions distract me and then I get falling behind. So then I start to notice, I lived that life. That was 15 years straight. And also recollecting, it was my first job I had as an engineer with Q Engineering. During that time, I did the same thing. Now, what I know now is I kept such a tight schedule that it was always an overscheduled day. It was urgent. Everything became an urgency. I had to go from one meeting to another. I was running behind. And this was a way to keep my brain firing on all 12,000 cylinders. And this urgency helped me create focus, and I got lots of stuff done. But it was physically and mentally fatiguing, and after 20 years, I actually started realizing I can't keep this up for the rest of my life because I'm just going to die of a heart attack or my body's going to give out on me because I'm a hyperactive male, adult, and I can't keep this pace up anymore. And then I start to reflect again, running from one thing to another. I remember this is why I created a lot of my own systems and routines and rituals because I was forgetting a lot of stuff. I'd forget to bring my laptop. I'd forget appointment I was going to. I'd forget the keys to the truck. I'd forget the folders and the information I was required for the site meetings, drawings. Then I'd forget to pick up stuff from home or I was going to do a bunch of stuff on the way. But since I'm running behind, I just forget all that because it wasn't written down. And I just forgot a lot of stuff. Now, is it forgetting because I just can't remember and I just don't have the wherewithal to figure it all out? No. What I think was happening is when our ADHD brain wants that dopamine to get all the brain muscles working so you can focus and get going, it tricks us to create urgency. And I think with that urgency, it influences the inattention and the forgetfulness. And that's where I put it together. So me keeping this high-paced schedule, one after another, never stopping, I forgot a lot of stuff. And I was forgetting this stuff because I was not allowing myself the time to just sit and check, or I didn't that's why I started having everything I need for tomorrow's meetings are going straight in my bag right now before I leave for the office or before I go to bed, so that I didn't have to think about it in the morning. So I came up with these systems to forget less. Now, what really got complicated, so they worked well. As long as I stayed within the schedule, even if it was back to back and go, as long as I kept those little routines and checks that everything I needed was there, I didn't have to remember it at the last minute. When we try to remember things at the last minute, when we're under pressure and urgency to get going, that's when we forget a lot of stuff. And then people call that, paying attention, it's inattention. So I think your inattention It's related to forgetfulness, and it's all influenced by how much urgency you've generated, created, or that there is around you. So the other thing too is what really got me going is when I allowed myself to be distracted during the day and I'd fall behind the 8 ball, right? Taking that extra call, taking that extra conversation with staff, or deciding to just work on this little project just to get it out the door. Now you fell behind schedule. You fell behind your plan. Now you're doing massive catch up. And that creates an urgency later that you're really falling behind. You can't get everything done, everything you promised to get done. And it just created chaos. Do you remember those days? Do you remember? I don't, it's not just those days. I still do it. We still do it. Now the key is to try and reduce that so 80% of the time we're working well. But just think about it. When did you create urgency? Subconsciously on purpose so you can focus and be able to not TikTok, but just keep going and go, go, go. When was the last time that you allowed some distractions to distract you, to fall off schedule, and then later on panic and start having to deal with chaos because now you got a different type of urgency and you got to catch up and make everything that you promised done. Okay. Now when you realize these situations, what occurred? How can you minimize that for the future? Like for me, it was all my meetings, everything's in that bag for that meeting the night before or the morning when I first get in. I prepare for the day so I don't have to worry about it when I'm running out the door because most likely I'm behind schedule. How can we forget this stuff? Put more reminders in the phone, on the calendar. You know, the keys are always now in my pocket type of deal. Stuff like that. Little tricks and to always prepare yourself for success later when you're in that urgent mode. And then how to reduce and come up with rules and boundaries and barriers about stuff that causes you to be distracted or delay. Like for me, when you see me walking out the door at the end of the day, it's not time to ask Andre a question because I'm already late. If I'm rushing out the door, I'm already late. So I cannot take a question. Now that's just a rule at the office. I hope this made sense because I think in the end, rushing can cause inattention and forgetfulness. I think that inattention is related to forgetfulness, and it's also highly influenced by the urgency and chaos that is around you. Not only that we got inattention and forgetfulness, like to me, if you're in hyper-focus mode, your brain did not hear that person asking you to do something. You didn't forget that. You just didn't hear it. It's along the lines of inattention. But inattention can also be forgetfulness because of the urgency that was created and the chaos that is around you. And how do you minimize that urgency? I know urgency is good every once in a while, but I think we got to control that urgency and be reasonable about that urgency sense, or we're going to burn ourselves out. I've done it many times, and that's one of my goals right now is to reduce that and to prevent that. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate it. If you think this is a valuable piece of insight for anyone, please share it with 2 or 3 people. Please leave me a rating and a comment. It'd be greatly appreciated so we can get this out to more people. Thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Impulsive Thinker podcast. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion for the show, please visit theimpulsivethinker.com. The Impulsive Thinker podcast is produced by Tactical Breakthroughs and hosted by Andre Brisson. Remember, ADHD is only a part of you, not all of you.